podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You're listening to Saucepans and Sidesteps.
Hello and welcome back to the Saucepans and Sidestep podcast. My name is Huw and I am joined as ever by the beautiful Carwyn. Good evening, Carwyn.
Good evening, Hugh. Thank you very much for such a heartwarming introduction. Always nice to be thought of in such a way. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very good. We're not joined by the customary Big M, unfortunately, tonight. He has managed to deprive himself of signal in another creative way, which means it's just us two, which is a shame because we did want to talk to Big M about his trip to the park this week, his experience, all the people that he got to see. He asked us to shout out Joe and the Pembroke Saucepan WhatsApp chat, who he met on the night, and they were a big fan of the podcast, apparently. So shout out to Joe. Hope you really enjoyed the game. But it's just you and me to review the Scarlets' thumping win over Zebra, 30 points to 8. What was your experience like watching the game from the comfort of your own home?
It was a bit sort of stressful for the first half. I thought, oh, we've had two such good performances, and now we're sort of churning this number out, and I was a bit worried, sort of midway through the first half, towards that second half of the first half. I thought, oh, we're not quite clicking. Things weren't maybe as special as they'd been the previous 2 weeks, and it was just a bit like, well, I hope it's not a case of last season all over again, but patience prevailed in the end, and the second half we just came out a different team after halftime. Dwayne Peel's team talk clearly worked, and we did what we had to do to get the bonus point win.
Yeah, definitely. I thought the first half was pretty turgid. I tweeted it at the time that it was not a good watch, and Gareth Davis said it in his post-match interview. He said that the boys emotionally weren't as up for it as they were the Bulls game. Obviously, a massive win in the previous game, and he felt that training was lacking a bit of zip. So he said that he was a bit nervous going into this game. He thought that maybe mentally we weren't quite at it. I think that showed a bit with the start of the game, but came out in the second half and did what we needed to do. I think that the Max Page try really put us on the right track, really took the pressures off the boys' shoulders, and then it was all downhill from there. Well, all downhill with the win behind you, all good. It wasn't bad from there anyway. I will say, before we get a bit too giddy talking about this game, full respect to if any Italian people are listening, want to hear their team spoken about. There's a couple of really fantastic Italian rugby podcasts that I've had the pleasure of speaking to in the past. So love those guys, but Zebra, very, very poor. Very, very poor in this game. One of the lesser performances from an opposition I've seen at the park.
Yeah, it's clearly showing that, I guess, Italian rugby is focused on Benetton, and that Zebra are very much a development team. Just sort of, it feels at times like they've just been put together for the sake for Italian rugby to have two teams in the league. But yeah, it's hard to see how they turn it around, really. I feel like they're in a rut that is going to take something spectacular to bring them out of. But of course, they've shown this year that they are capable of winning matches when they put Munster to the sword. But when you sort of think of how they played in that game to what we saw on Friday, it's a million miles apart, really. And fortunate for the Scarlets, obviously, because it keeps this little momentum run we're on now, and it's a shame, I guess, in one way that the international break does come when it does. But I guess at least having won 3 on the bounce, it'll be a much happier international break and well-deserved break for the boys, maybe compared to what it had been after the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah, so 3 in a row, as you said, first time since February 2023. So we'll call it 18 months ago since we last went 3 in a row. Is that purely down to the teams that we've played, or do you think that no, this is genuinely the Scarlets have turned a corner?
I think give the boys a credit. I think they've turned a corner because obviously a fortnight before the first win of three, which was against Cardiff Rugby, of course, we lost to the same opposition at home. So, and I know maybe Cardiff Rugby aren't in a fantastic place as a squad at the moment, but they'd have been buzzing having won at Parc y Scarlets when you think about what happened last year when we did the
Mm.
double over them. So I think it's a case of the boys deserve some credit because obviously then the Bulls, you can argue what you want about the team the Bulls picked. It's not a weak side regardless of who the Bulls pick. And so no, I'm on this one. I'm going to give the boys the credit I think they deserve.
Yeah, and I think that we've spoken, this season all about the effort and the renewed edge that the pack has got, etc., etc. Um, I do agree that I think that we need to give the boys the credit. I think, like we said a second ago, they struggled to get going in this one, but once they did get going, it was very comfortable in the end. And I think they kind of took their foot off the gas after the fourth try went over, and it was just pretty comfortable from there. So speaking about the game in particular, then, what about that performance stood out for you?
I think it's the way that when the backs get going, it's the familiarity they've got amongst them already. It feels like Eddie James has been around this team for years. Blair Murray slots in like he's been around for years. Max Page, especially in attack, he looks like a formidable beast. As in, I think if I'm right in thinking, Eddie James is the oldest of those three at 22, and
Hmm.
um, the possibility or the potential that this backline holds going forward is just frightening, really. If we can keep these players fit and if we can keep them playing all together, then we could be seeing something magical over the next 5, 10 years with the backline. And obviously, I think I don't want to deprive the pack because that's been the most impressive thing for me for this year is the pack, and we just seem to be doing things right after a season where we couldn't do anything right. We seem to be getting it right this year.
Yeah, I think this was definitely the first game where we've seen the back line really hum. We've seen it in fits and spurts, particularly with the centres, with Eddie and Johnny and Max getting on the score sheet a few times each. Well, maybe Eddie not on the score sheet, but as assisting, as we've learned from Opta today, assisting at least one line break in four of his five games and has got six line break assists so far this season. Only Sione Tuipulotu and one other player whose name escapes me has got more. But focusing on the backs, like you said, the pack is what has kind of been the big difference this season. But our attack. So if I just like take example the Blair Murray try, which I think it was his 22nd try of the season, I think so far. Um, every back in the team touches the ball in this try, and there's only three rucks. So I find it quite interesting. I'm going to do a slightly longer, but not very long, video about it, I think, during the international break, where we look at how the Scarlets are actually trying to play, and it's quite interesting seeing this. The stat that went around during the week was lacking in effective carries or too many ineffective carries, and we had a high proportion of those, the most of anyone in the league. Now, ineffective carry as a stat, I'm not a huge fan of because there's a layer of subjectivity to that. There's someone is coding the stat and making a judgment what they think is an effective and an ineffective carry. So it's not the most objective measure. And I spoke to a rugby analyst who says that when you talk about dominant carries, sometimes they can be a negative because a player gets a dominant carry, he becomes isolated, the ball gets turned over, you end up in a net loss in territory. But what we see from the Scarlets, and this comes up a couple of times in this move, is very happy to move sideways in order to find the space. So if we take, for example, uh, the the movement of Max Page in this move, he moved sideways twice. Both times when Sam Costello passes the ball to him, Max Page runs sideways to try and draw a defender towards him and put someone away. We saw the same thing from Johnny Williams for Eddie James's line break against Connacht, where Cowdor scored the try. So it's clearly part of the plan. So when we're seeing the Scarlets make carries and perhaps not smash over the gain line, I would say it's not that massive of a panic because that's not necessarily what we're trying to do. We're happy to go sideways a few times before we create the gap, we create a one-on-one, and someone like Max Page, Johnny Williams, Eddie James breaks the line, and then we're through. So it's an interesting development. It's not a unique way of playing. Avoiding rucks and having a very low ruck count. I think we've kicked once every 3 rucks at least in every game so far this season. We're not interested in phase play, and like I said, it's not unusual. If I look at the famous teams that do that, Toulouse aren't interested in phase play. Bordeaux, one of the most attacking teams in Europe, aren't interested in phase play. Argentina avoided rucks like the plague in the Rugby Championship. Their whole game plan is based on around not having rucks. So, like I said, it is a way of playing. It just puts a huge amount of pressure on the players on the pitch to be able to execute it. And that's why it's taken so long, I think, to start looking good, because the cohesion that's needed in order to make it happen is so high. So does that kind of make sense? I've kind of tried to explain it there, mate. Does that kind of match the eye test from your point of view?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, though, when you look at it like that, shows the confidence the coaching staff has in the backs that they're willing to sort of play it this way, where everything isn't about charging forward, but it's about making the right run at the right time or making the right pass at the right time. And implementing something like that will take time. And it might not work every time, as we've seen, but when it does work, it puts you in a good position and it puts you in space. And we're sort of seeing Blair Murray, Max Page, Eddie James benefit from this well, tactic, I guess, is probably the best way to describe it, over the last few weeks. And um, I think as fans, when we see this and when we break it down to something like this, it's key then that we have the patience as well with the players, that when it doesn't come off, it's not the end of the world, because next time we might get a different outcome and we'll reap the rewards because of it.
Yeah, so if I for the YouTube viewers, if I just flick through this try a bit longer. So this is there's 3 rucks in this move, and this is the second one. So if we go from here, Cowdor to Sammy gets it to Max Page, and this is what I was saying. Max Page is now running sideways across the pitch, gets it to Eddie James, does a handoff, does it out the back, offload, and then into Tom Rogers, who beats a load of players, blah 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 blah. Then ruck. So there's quite a lot has happened between those 2 rucks. There's been a heap of defenders beaten. There's been a heap of passes, and we've gone sideways as much as we've gone forward. Then after this ruck, this is the last ruck before the try is scored. Again goes to Sammy. Again goes to Max Page, who runs sideways again. And if I stop it there, you can't quite see it on this snip, but you can see the 2 defenders that are on Max here. There's the third defender is what Max is looking at. Max's eyes are fixed on this third defender who's going to come into shot now, this guy here. And it takes quite a lot. This is very, very similar, like I said, to Johnny Williams assisting Eddie James's line break against Connacht and puts Tame Plumtree through. So this is, rather than just being pure vibes, because we're now seeing this in multiple games, it's a repeatable set play process that the Scarlets are using, and we're scoring tries off it. So it works. It just is, like I said last week, maximum effort in order to make it happen. So kind of just generally on the style of play, Carwyn. We've talked about the pack, like I said. Are we, for you, playing the Scarlets way?
To an extent, yes. It feels like a Scarlets 2.0 way. And I think, as we all know, rugby adapts, rugby changes. The best way of playing changes season upon season. And I think what we're seeing is Dwayne Peel maybe saying, right, okay, I want to play the Scarlets way, but I want to play it in a way that evolves to the new way of playing, as in we've always had backs who love to spin it wide and run line breaks and score beautiful tries. What we haven't seen maybe is 1 to 8 in the pack, just as happy joining the attacking line and not only just taking it up, but making that break or holding that pass or making the right decision in the way we might be seeing with Tame Plumtree. And that's no sort of disrespect to previous forwards we've had. It's just they've been tasked with getting the ball, hitting the line hard, and then letting the backs do the work. Now we're seeing 1 to 15 across the field, really. We're seeing props, second rows, back rowers popping up in that 15-meter channel, making the crucial break to release Rogers, Murray, Gareth Davies, as in the way we're playing now is we're very hard to defend, I guess I'd imagine, because you don't know who's going to be the one making that
Hmm.
clinical break at the right time.
Yeah. You talk about 1 to 15 though. Like the player in the middle of that is Tame Plumtree. So when I've been doing my stats drops, I've been trying to put off doing Tame Plumtree ones because you could just do one every week. But 66 minutes, 73 meters, came off early. 12 carries, 7 passes, 7 out of 7 tackles, 5 line out takes, 3 offloads, which is the most of anyone, 2 line breaks, most of anyone, 2 defenders beaten, and 2 try assists. He's our player of the season so far. Is he a number 8? Do we have to just keep him at number 8 moving forward?
Um, he's making it very hard not to pick him at 8, and I think what you get when you do pick him at 8 is you get another two flankers on the pitch. Where if you pick him at 6 at 7 or 7, it usually means you got a number 8 and then one other flanker. But now we've almost got 3 flankers in the back row.
Hmm.
Um, the way he's playing, why move him? As in, if it ain't broken, why fix it? And he's certainly putting a case for being number 8. He's giving Gatland a headache ahead of the autumn internationals. But it's a good headache to have, and Dwayne Peel's obviously seen something in there, so he's gonna hopefully stick with it because with Plumtree at 8, if he's playing like a player who knows he's got freedom to roam a bit and
Hmm.
to not do what he wants because obviously there's a game plan, but certainly dictate maybe how he plays the game.
Have you heard his player mic?
I
Um,
haven't heard his player mic, no.
so we had player mic on it for Scrum 5. I will say that not the most insightful thing I've ever heard. It's a lot of oof and oof and give me the ball and not much beyond that, you know. So I hope you don't take that as offense, Tane, but like reciting Shakespeare, he was not out there. It was a lot of he appealed to the ref a lot as well.
Didn't want to give the game away. Didn't he knew the mic was on him, so
Yeah.
he's that intelligent of a rugby player. He played his calls differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player who stood out 2 weeks in a row. He stood out now. Looks like a man reborn after skinning Cheslin Curtly Arendse is Tommy Rogers. So 76 meters, sorry, 76 minutes. That should read 87 meters, 8 defenders beaten, which is the most of anybody from his 5 carries. So he's beating more than
One
a
and a
defender.
half.
Yeah, 1.5 defenders per carry. 3 out of 3 tackles, a kick, a line break, a dominant hit, an offload, a try, 0 turnovers lost, i.e., he didn't drop the ball once, and he didn't concede any penalties. Just as he's getting good on the wing, he's probably going to get game time at fullback for Wales.
It's funny, isn't it? As in, I remember on this podcast we were sort of discussing. I think it was after the first 2 games of the season where nothing seemed to go his way, and we were sort
Hmm,
of questioning: does he keep his place in the Scarlets team? Since that pod, obviously Tom's another one who listens, as most of the squad does. He's a different beast, and he's, well, yeah, he's made a very good case to play on the wing. But yeah, as you say, the likelihood is we'll probably see him at fullback in a Welsh jersey. But um, he's doing everything right, as in he's seen there's a shirt there to be had, as in we've got 3 or 4 very good young wingers, and Tom Rogers has gone right. I'm not letting these new kids all come in and take my shirt. I've got plenty of life left in me, and it's woken him up, and he's Well, yeah, he's definitely up there. If you're discussing player of the season at the moment, Pumphrey and Rogers would probably be two names quite close to top of the list because they're just doing everything right. And yeah, it's amazing to see really how a try or just something in his confidence changing and him now becoming a crucial part of the cog that is the Dwayne Peel way of Scarlets playing. And yeah, fair play to him. He probably had to answer a lot of critics early on, and he's answered them in the best way possible by scoring tries, beating defenders, and keeping World Cup winners in his pocket.
Yeah. He's the old outside of Cowder in our backline. Tom Rogers is the oldest player.
And how old? 26?
25.
25. I don't want to say that's disgusting because it's not, but that's incredible. As in, yeah, that is just,
Yeah.
it is disgusting, actually. It's dangerous. Potentially, apart from Cowdor, we could have all those boys for minimum of 7 years playing as a unit.
Yeah. What other players stood out to you then? Is there any players that we haven't spoken about that you think deserve a shout?
Um, Trying to remember now. All these wins are blending into one at the
Well, we haven't
moment.
spoken about Eddie James yet.
We haven't, no, and I'm just glad that his playing ability is better than his drum beating ability. But no, you know what, as in he's another one. Obviously, there's a lot of hype around him. He's rightfully in the Welsh squad again, and he's just um doing everything right. He's probably one of those players that defenses find very hard to read because
Mm,
if you were to look at him, you expect him to bulldoze at you, and you sort of double up on the tackle, and then we've got him in our pocket. He's fine. Then all of a sudden, he chucks a no-look pass, or he makes a line break, or he puts somebody behind him around the back in space, and you're like, he's not meant to do that. Number 12s like him are built to run straight at the number 10. That's it. That's his job. So, is he sort of the modern 12, the not the footballing 12, not the bulldozing 12, but a combination of both?
I think so. I think if you look at what 12s look like around the world now, a lot more skillful players than they used to be. I guess it's all in the shadow of Marnonu, really, was the archetype for this. And am I saying that Eddie James is the new Marnonu? Maybe I am saying that.
I think it's very valid the way he's playing.
uh, but like exactly as he said, and I think Sean Holly called it out in his analysis, we the way that he shapes his body like he's going to carry, so he kind of lowers himself and braces for the impact, and then the soft hands of death. We saw about 3 or 4 soft hands of death in just this one game. The perfect example of in Tom Rogers' try when he straightened up and drew 2 men. Obviously, for Max Page's try, the fantastic just we almost kind of expected now. That's kind of a signature move because everyone's getting excited and kind of all that's changing is how far from the try line they're running it. So before it was like on the 22, and then it was halfway between the 22 and the halfway. Now it's from halfway. We'll be doing it from our own 22 in a couple of games' time. Just do it from there, boys. And then
Yeah,
just
I'm expecting an NFL style return from the kickoff where Eddie catches it, puts Max in Page, and then the next thing you know, Sammy's lining up the conversion.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it just shows how what winning and what confidence does to you as a player, doesn't it?
Mm.
You feel invincible, and to have that invincibility in such a young backline just promises big things. Yeah, for me, the key is just keeping them together as a unit.
What did you make of Sam Costello's performance? Because he got his first start in a little while. Watching it live, there wasn't it wasn't a highlights reel game for him. He wasn't doing the kicking. Johan Lloyd took over the kicking. Do, do you feel that he showed much in this game?
No, as in, not that he didn't show much, but I think the problem is now with Costello, the bar is set so high. If it's not a 12 out of 10 performance, he's at a shocker. Um, I must admit, when I saw the kicking was taken off him, I was a bit like, oh, I hope he's made that call and not from the coaching setup because if he's made the call, fair play to him. It's a big man move to make. He said, "I'm not kicking great, Johan. You've slotted a few beauties over the last few weeks. You take the tee, and if the coaches have come out and said you're an ideal kicking, then it's not what you want to hear as a number 10.
Mm.
No, I don't know if it's come out where that call has been made, but yeah, it's just I think because for the last 2 years he's basically carried the region and a lot of the Welsh team on his back. He's probably got more relaxed than maybe he expected he'd be, or there's not the same amount of pressure, and it's just adapting to that, I guess, maybe where he's not expected to do everything himself. And we all know how good he is, we all know what he can do, and we also all know this is just a blip, as in Sam Costello doesn't have poor game after poor game after poor game. I wouldn't be worried. It's just a case of him maybe taking his eye off the ball. Obviously, hadn't started for a couple of games back in the team, and just yeah, as in I'm fully expecting him to star in the red shirt of Wales over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I will say that when I watched bits of the game back to get clips and things, you notice like he's in the center of everything a lot more. Now, obviously, he's the fly half, so he's always going to be in the center of things. Like I said, this game plan that we've got, where it's all about players taking on opponents, beating opponents, avoiding phase play of things, doesn't necessarily play to Sammy's strengths. So the best that I think that we've ever seen Sammy play is when he's in quite a structured team and he's calling the shapes and he's bossing, groups of players around rather than always having to kind of improvise. But having him, and that's why Johan Lloyd looks so good in our game plan because that suits him down to the ground. But going back and watching the game again, you do notice that Sam was very influential. So the two tries that we scored in open play, Tom Rogers' try and Blair Murray's try, come from kicks. So we kick, we turn zebra, they kick it back to us, and then their chase isn't very good, and then we pick them off. Is basically a short version of what happens for both of those. And Sam's still the best kicker from hand in the team. He found grass a fair few times in this game, and his decision making, like I said, what he managed to work with Max in order to exploit the back line, and he's still the brains on the pitch. I would say he's still the big thinker on that pitch, the strategizer, the man who pulls the trigger, the one who knows where to go, where to kick, controlling the game. And I maintain that his defense is absolutely phenomenal. It's not just like good for a 10, it's particularly good defense for any player. And people might be like, "Oh, that's not what I pay to watch a 10 do is defend." But the fact is that it's basically a superpower for Sam at the moment. It's that good. So I actually think that it's going to take him a little while to start looking amazing in this game plan because it doesn't play to his strengths. But I still think that the best Scarlets team is the one with Sam Costello in it because I think we're just a smarter team with him on the pitch.
Yeah, got to agree with you there. As in, I think he brings a calmness to the chaos, not the chaos, but he's the old head at 23, 24, whatever he is now. And yeah, I agree with you. I think having him in the team certainly makes us a better drilled team.
Yeah. Now, there was a bit of controversy in this game, unfortunately. Kemsley Mathias was penalised at a scrum for the first time this season. Now, Mart can't be with us tonight, but he has sent us a lengthy WhatsApp explaining his view on it. So listeners who aren't that into scrums are blessed. This would have been a 20-minute TED talk from Mart had he been here, but essentially he thinks it was a nonsense that Kemsley was penalised at that scrum. It happened pretty much in front of him in the ground. And he said that it was a ref's mistake. The zebra tight head was bound on the arm and pulled him down. But Mark also does go on to say, to prove that he's not just a one-eyed Scarlet, he feels that Henry Thomas got away with a couple of offences out of a couple of scrums. He was either bound on the arm or he dropped in the end, should have been penalised more than he was. But he wasn't, and the Scarlets have statistically, according to the URC website, the best scrum in the league. So
That's
there
enough
you
on
go.
that.
That's enough of that talk. Um, Anything else that we need to cover from this game then, mate?
I can't. No, I can't think. I think we've covered it quite extensively there. Obviously, it's a shame Matt is not here because, as we said, he was at the ground and we would have had a lovely discussion about his trip, but that'll have to wait for another day.
If you do want to see about Martin's trip, episode 2 of Mart at the Park is available on socials. You can find it on Twitter, you can find it on TikTok, you can find it on YouTube Shorts. It's a compilation of Mart's trip to Parky Scarlets and clips from the game as well, and some music, which is sometimes incredibly difficult to edit. But moving on, a bit of news before we go into community. So the bit of news is that Dwayne Peel was asked directly if Alex Craig is leaving the region, and he said no. So that's a relief.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll take that. That's gospel for me. So yeah, happy with that. Hearing that.
Yeah, so we all got a bit excited thinking that Alex Craig was moving up to Glasgow. I think Glasgow got a bit excited about that as well. But Dwayne says no, he's a Scarlets player, he's not going anywhere. So delighted. Alex, you're a cracking player, and the longer that you play for the Scarlets is the longer that we are all happy about it.
Exactly.
Okay, then, mate, do you want to take us through the community?
Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm not as much of a expert as Matt when it comes to um this, but I'll do my best. So we'll start as
Are you able to
always.
share?
Oh, yes. I probably am able to share. It's just me
If you
remembering
can,
how to
I can share
share.
it.
Boom, boom, boom. Share. It usually helps if you press that button. Can you see that?
No.
Ah, okay.
Okay, I'll share,
Oh,
don't worry
sorry, because I need to press share. That's what usually
about it.
helps.
Okay,
Is
good.
that the right one?
Yes.
Right, perfect. So as always, we'll start in Super Rugby Cymru. And after a tricky start, Llandovery, they travelled up to Aberafon. I almost had Aberaeron there, Aberafon, and came away with the victory, 33-26. And as you can see, a few of our boys involved in the game, and getting on the try score sheet again, which is always good to see. It's
Yes.
sort of what. Sorry.
Ellis, me, and Jack Davis both scored.
Yeah, and obviously that's purpose of Super Rugby Cymru is to give some younger players that higher exposure and paying off. Obviously, Ellis Me played a bit for the Scarlets at the start of the season, now settled into life at Llandovery and seems to be thriving. I think that's his second or third try
Yeah.
in as many games. So
Yeah. And Morgan Jones and Gabe Hawley getting a run out as well. Good to see.
yes, yeah. So good as in if I think that's fantastic to see if you're not involved in the matchday squad that you drop down and get plenty of game time and so the same with the Carmarthen Quins. Obviously they went down 39-11. That's home to Ebble Vale.
Mhm.
Yori Badham and
Gabe McDonald.
Gabe McDonald, obviously, yeah, in the starting lineup and it's part of the um 23. Sean O'Connor. Ellis Price, obviously. If you haven't seen his brother Jack's interview with Matt, that's to find on our socials. And oh, is it No,
Keanu Evans, I
Keanu
think.
Evans. That's it. Yeah, my pronunciation isn't great. And
And Rodri Lewis, I want to
Rodri
say.
Lewis, the scrum half, of course. Yeah. So yeah, obviously now there's no games for 3 weeks because a small matter of international rugby.
I think
Uh,
that's nonsense.
it
I
is a bit
think
silly, really.
we
As
said
in,
that. I think we said this last week, but breaking Super Rugby Cymru for international rugby is daft.
You'd think it'd be the perfect time for players at regional who might be coming back from injury
Exactly.
or who might have lacked a bit of game time to have some game time. But anyway, next up in Super Rugby Cymru is not until the 22nd of November when Carmarthen Quins travel to Bridgend, and then on the 23rd, Llandovery host Cardiff in what will be a big
That's a big
game
game.
in the
Mhm.
oopsie, gone too far now, sorry. Oh, having a mare. Mart, come back, please. Right, moving on to the Premiership, Premiership Cup. Narberth hosted Cross Keys and didn't quite have enough, although they did score 28 points at home, which is a very impressive tally. Cross Keys hitting the 50 mark, 52 points, 28 to Cross Keys. Premiership action this weekend. Llangenech host Merthyr. Newbridge host Newcastle Emlyn, and then Narberth host Cardiff Met. Moving on to the Championship Cup. One team in our region still going strong, Llanelli Wanderers, getting a 29-18 win away at Tata Steel. So the Wanderers, well, you could say they wandered into the next round of the hat. I promise I haven't been practicing that. Championship West this weekend, Crymych host Kenfig Hill, Ammerford travel to Glynneath, and Llanelli Wanderers travel to Trebanos. Dropping down Division 1 Cup, Aberavon, GS, I'm trying to think what that is. It Aberavon Green Stars? Um, I I'll pretend it's that and sound like I know what I'm talking about. Hosted Hendy, and Hendy got the win 36-28 in the big battle of Division West in the Division 1 Cup. Leaders Aberystwyth beat St Clair, so I think getting third in the league, so it was a very good battle, 35-23. And in another Division 1 West clash, Wan Arlwydd lost 25-27 at home to Tenby in the Cup. So obviously Division 1 West returns this weekend. Bury Port hosts St Clair's, Penclawdd host Felyn Fôl, Ponrhydd host Kidwelly, Hendy Aberystwyth, and in a repeat of the Cup there, just talking about it, Wan Arlwydd hosts Tenby once again. So I just need to move our faces to the left. Division 2 Cup, not a lot of action in
So
Division 2 Cup.
what's been the controversy in the cup with games being called off?
I presume teams not being clubs not being able to field teams, or maybe the traveling aspect of it. I don't know, as in it's tricky, isn't it, when you sort of drop down like this and clubs don't play their matches. It's you don't want to see it, but at the end of the day, we don't know what these clubs are going through. They've all got to work, and they might not be able to get the time off or whatever. But it's sad that cups are decided by walkovers. But yeah, Abercraf got a walkover win against Lan. Brynaman got a walkover against Beto. Lampeter got a walkover against Nangredig, and Carmarthen Athletic got a walkover against Pyle. So yeah, 3 wins for teams in the region without scoring a point. Division 2 West League this weekend, Beto's host Nangredig, Lampeter host Fishguard, Lan host Luffer, Whitland host Milford, and Carmarthen Athletic have a bye. Division 2 West Central, then Brynaman host Aberafan Quins. Now dropping down to Division 3 in the Cup. Cardigan, big win for Cardigan at home to Carmarthen, 35-25. In the Gwendraeth Valley battle, it was Pontyberem who came out on top as they won 25-22 at Cefneithin. Haverfordwest going down 17-19 to Aberaeron. Llangadog winning at home 38-29 against Baglan, and T Cross getting a walkover win against Amman United. And Division 3 West this weekend, we see Aberaeron host Pontyberem, Cefneithin hosting Amman United, Llandeilo hosting Haverfordwest, Llangadog hosting Cardigan, and T Croes hosting Tumble. Division 4 Cup, 2017 win for Narberth Athletic on the road against Furness. Tim Saran with an impressive 49-25 win away at Gleis. Maesteg getting the better of New Dock Stars 34-31.
Oh, flipping heck.
Neyland getting a win 33-21 against Cwmgors. Pantyffynon going narrowly down 16-19 to Llandybia, and Crymych Teirw getting a win against Biniau 24-7, and then the Newcastle Emlyn Dreigiau getting a walkover against Alltwen. In Division 4 West A, the Newcastle Emlyn Dreigiau host St David's, Llangwm host Pembroke Dock, Llanybydder host Pembroke, and Neyland host Narberth Athletic, with Crymych Teirw getting the bye. And then Division 4 West B, New Dock Stars host Fall Bay, Pantyffynon against Biniau, Pennebank against Tregaron, and Pontiets host Llandybia, and Furness host Tim Saran. And I believe there's some Youth Cup action going on at the moment, or going on this week, I should say. In the Carmarthenshire Cup, a Man United host Newcastle Emlyn, Lampit of Llandelo, Llangenef i Carmarthen Quins, and in a bit of a derby, obviously not the biggest because they could have played two Carmarthen teams. St Clair's hosting Carmarthen Athletic. Then if you just quickly move on to the Ceredigion Pembrokeshire Cup, it's Crymych at home to Haverfordwest, Fishguard at home to Aberystwyth, Narberth at home to Tenby, and Pembroke host Llangwm. And that, I believe, is everything in Matt's amazing community game roundup, hosted by Carwyn this week.
Well done, Carwyn.
Thank you.
It's not easy.
Please hold questions till next week when Matt's back and is able to answer them, as I don't have the wealth of knowledge he has on the community game.
Indeed not. Well, before we continue any further, I just want to remind listeners that if you are enjoying what you're hearing so far, if you give us a 5-star review on audio platforms, you can leave a comment when you do that as well, and we'll read it out if it's very nice. Or if you're watching on YouTube, if you're still going this far into the show, you clearly like what you're seeing. So give us a subscribe, give us a comment. We'll always reply. And like the video and share a link with a friend. It really, really, really helps us out. But before we talk about what's next, we've been inundated by a letter, and this week, it's not me who's been sent a letter. It's Carwyn has been sent a letter.
Yeah, somehow your mate Jack got my address, and he very generously sent me a long letter that he'd like me to read out to our viewers and listeners. And it goes, "Dear Saucepans and Sidesteps, I was very disappointed to learn that Dion Dublin and the Homes Under the Hammer team were meeting with a Welsh rugby player in the Mumbles last week. It's about time that people realise and accept that homes in this region are purely kept for homegrown talent within the region. We can't be letting any Tom, Dick or Eddie move in willy-nilly, or we lose the unique local talent we've built here for years. Kind regards, your friend, Jack from Luffer."
Well, can consider yourself kindly regarded, Jack. Thank you for writing in as always. And I think it's quite right. I personally don't want to see any more rugby players moving to the Mumbles that aren't already there.
No, exactly. There's plenty of opportunities to give these houses to the homegrown local talent available. There's no need to start selling to people from over the Luffer Bridge or to the east of Bridgend either. There's plenty of opportunities within the region for these houses to go to.
I couldn't agree more. Anyway, so we're kind of no rugby next week, no game to preview. So instead we shall look back. First 6 games, what grade would you give the Scarlets for the first 6 games of the URC season?
Can we go plus or minus, or are we just going?
No, we can go plus or minus.
I'm going to give them a B plus.
Ooh.
I feel like there's been some good performances, there's been some good wins, but there's also plenty to work on, as in, so I'm sort of middle of the roading it there a bit, where I feel like I'm satisfied by where we are and what we've achieved in the first block of 6 games. Bearing in mind, after 2 games, I was ready to write us off with a U for the season. After 3 games, sorry, I was ready to write us off with a U for the season, thinking the season was over. The way they've reacted deserves some praise and credit, and I just hope now they use this B plus and project it further. I'm genuinely excited as to where this season goes now. From a point of despair towards the end of the last season, it's a team and a group of young men who I think are, as fans, we should be proud of, and they should also be proud of what they've done and are achieving on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to go for a B plus as well.
Oh wow, great minds think alike.
I think the 3 wins in a row obviously helps. When we saw the fixtures come out, we said that we need to be winning 4 or 5 of those. We have had a favourable start to the season, and we've only won 3. So based on that expectation, we've fallen short. However, when you throw into the context of we've won three and we drew one and we lost one by 1 point, which was a kick in the 11th minute or whatever it was, then you chuck in that context and you go, oh, actually, it is acceptable and the progress has been good and we can see what the team's trying to do on the pitch and there's an identity to the team. There's an edge to the pack. We are seeing players perform. Everyone's getting excited about Eddie James and Max Page. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. We've got Johnny Williams and Joe Roberts to come back in yet. Everybody calm down. So I think we're on a good path. So I would say that we've got very clear work-ons, use ones that we say every week of use of the bench, discipline, and exits. Again, things that need to be fixed, but a team moving in the right direction. So, but I think a B plus is fair, and like you said, excited to see the rest of the season. So if we talk about the fixtures coming up after the international break, assuming that all our players do come back from Wales not on crutches in full body casts or what have you. So we've got the win. So we've got a very tough away game against Glasgow. Glasgow away is statistically the hardest game in the URC. Now, where Glasgow will be in terms of their squad with Scotland internationals, etc., unsure. But it's a very, very tall order to go and get anything from Scotstoun. But after that, we've got a run of games of Bayonne away. You've got no idea what you're going to get. Bayonne are going very well in the top 14 at the moment, but French Teams Challenge Cup, you never know what you're going to get. I'm pretty sure we've had some decent results over Bayonne in the past, so we'll see. We've then got Black Lion at home, Ospreys away, and then going into January, we've got Dragons at home, Gloucester away, and then Vaughan at home, and then Edinburgh at home. That's not too bad of a run of fixtures.
No, I've got to agree with you there, and I think Gloucester Van, those two games, a lot on the selection and maybe attitude and everything will depend on how we do against Bayonne and Black Lion in December. I think obviously you want a European Cup run, you want the season to go as long as possible, and I think we've got a squad. It's not a massive squad, and touch wood, we've been very lucky with injuries so far. But
31 players used, 25
yeah,
players in the last 4 games. The minimum's 23. So we're
yeah,
basically just using the same players every week.
yeah. So if we can keep players fit, then why not go for a cup run as well as a league run? But I think the games you've got to look at, obviously, yeah, Glasgow away. I'd never write a game of rugby off because that's not the way I think. But having picked up these 3 wins on the bounce, we can go into the Glasgow game full of confidence. But at the same time, we know if we do lose that one, it's not the end of the world. As in, on paper, I'd imagine a lot of teams in the URC look at Glasgow away and think, oh, maybe we'll have to give that one as a one we lose. But then Ospreys at home. Problem with derbies, as we all know, form goes out the window, and you'd like to think the way that both teams are playing at the moment that you'd probably make us slight favourites, especially at home. But oh no, sorry, that's the one away at the Ospreys. I do apologise. That's the one that's been moved because of the football clash,
Yeah.
isn't it? So at the Swansea.com or whatever the stadium's called now, it's a lottery. But then coming into January, Dragons and Edinburgh in the league, I think you've got to look at those as two wins. Hopefully with bonus points so that we can carry on the momentum really and start the new year with a bang. So if we get a big start to January, then I think we can start looking up as opposed to down in the table, which is something that we haven't probably done for a couple of years. But it's nice to be in a position where our destiny is in our hands.
Yeah, I think you're right. We only need 2 more wins to match our season from last season. So fingers crossed we can do that in the next run of fixtures. Obviously, the Black Lion is going to be a game to exercise some demons. I'm just looking because Scotland play their last game on the 24th of November. And a week later on the 29th or less than a week later on the 29th is when Glasgow play the Scarlets. Now, Scotland will be playing Australia. I should imagine they'll go full strength for that. So I would be surprised if Glasgow have all of their internationals back, but at the same time, I would be surprised if we have all of our internationals back as well. Now, we do have a lot of we are able to put out a team in these the around the international times. If we put out a team without any internationals in it, it would probably be Alec Hepburn, who's not been picked for Scotland, Marnus van der Merwe, Sam Wainwright, and then probably Douglas Lousy. Alex Craig has been picked, so it would be Jared Evans, Josh McLeod, and Dan Davis if he's back from injury. And then Cowdell's obviously retired. You got Johan Lloyd who's not been picked, and then you can have Johnny and Max, Joe if he's back fit, and then you've still got wing's a bit tricky. Wing and fullback. You still got Johan Lloyd, Johan Nicholas, and then
yeah.
you're probably Ellis, me, and
maybe Max
another.
Page if Joe Roberts is fit.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And then the bench is looking a bit weak, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that'll be a tough one, but that's not too bad of a team.
No.
I've been thinking this. Is it possible to get all four of our centres into one back line? For all you listeners, Carwyn's thinking very hard.
I can fit 3 in. Well, do you put Eddie at 10?
I was more thinking. I'm still convinced that at URC level, Johnny Williams could do a job on the left wing.
Okay. And have Max on the other wing, and then
Eddie and Joe in the middle.
Yeah.
I know that everyone's getting very excited about our centre combinations. It was Johnny Williams and now it's Max Page. Rightly so, getting excited about them. But I do think when Joe comes back, we're all going to go, oh, yeah, Joe Roberts.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, so I think it could be done. It's very tough on players like Blair Murray and Tom Rogers who would then lose their spots. I would say if you could, it's a headache, Carl.
Yeah, it's a good one to have though.
Yeah. I can see why they didn't bring Johnny on for very long against Severa. If Johnny's game time hadn't worked out the way it had so far this season, I would have liked to brought him on a bit earlier. But because we were playing, I don't know if you noticed, we played Sam Lousy in the 12 channel quite a lot, which I thought was interesting. But hey ho, so I agree with your prediction for the games coming up. I think there's again 4 or 5 games out of the next 6 or 7 which are winnable, which kind of puts the pressure on. But the next 4 home games I think are Black Lion, Van, Dragons, and Edinburgh. Winnable fixtures based on what we've seen so far this season. So
definitely.
Fingers crossed. And if we do start getting those wins, I hope people flood back to the park. I think we don't. Our next game against Glasgow is a Friday night, but then our game after that we're out in Bayonne, and then we're back home against Black Lion which is a Sunday game at 1:00. So bring the whole family and then go out for a nice lunch afterwards.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Carwyn, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. It's been good.
And I'm not sure if we'll do a show next week because there's no Scarlets. So next time we speak to everybody, we'll be hopefully discussing yet another glorious Scarlets victory. And we'll see you then.
That was Saucepans and Sidesteps. Please rate, review and share on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.